friends. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Anyone watching now or later, or on the Fantasy Talks Live podcast at some point in the future. It is my pleasure to be joined tonight by the ever insightful, ever incisive, and never indifferent Susana Imáginario. How are you?
Hello, Jose. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing all right. Just have a bit of a cold, so I'll be sounding like this. I'm sorry. It's the best I can do.
It'll be absolutely fine. Right. So, the Incal by Jodorowsky and Moebius. I feel almost like an apology is due for roping you into this read along. Am I far off the mark?
Uh, well, I was concerned at a certain point why. I wondered if I might have said or done something to piss you off. I struggle, but then again, I knew I would because, I need to make this disclaimer before we continue. I don't read graphic novels. Just comic books is not my thing. The format doesn't work for me. To this day, I've only managed to finish The Sandman, and it was a struggle, and I was really invested in the story. But I hate the medium. But I also know that I was missing a lot on a lot of stories because I usually like the adaptations or when I hear about them. So I promised myself that I would try to read more graphic novels. And when you suggested this one, I said, well, it's as good as any other. And, if Jose suggests it must have, it must be good. And it was an experience. I still don't like graphic novels. So everything I say from and on, keep that in mind.
Yeah. So no, I think in all fairness to everyone, we both went in blind on this one. I didn't know anything about the Incal. I just knew that it was one of those graphic novels that you supposedly have to read. I think I was reading somewhere it's the highest selling European graphic novel of all time, or the highest selling sci-fi graphic novel of all time. And a quick question, and then we're going to start talking about plot and themes and all that stuff. Are we in the slipstream?
I would say no. There's a lot of slipstream elements, but it again, because it's such an alien format for me. My idea of slipstream is the combination of fantasy with sci-fi and literary elements, and just to make it everything weird. I mean, it does have the weirdness. It does have a few tropes, and we'll get into that. And it is disorientating, definitely. So, I don't know, might be considered slipstream for a graphic novel, but for me, slipstreaming needs to be more immersive. And graphic novels, by their graphic nature, doesn't give the same impact, at least to me.
I think it's fair to say this is not for the uninitiated. If you are new to graphic novels, or you've only read a couple, and you maybe, I don't know, wherever your entry point is, certainly shouldn't be the Incal, right?
Well, I don't know. On one hand, it was very easy to read. I will not get into the prose because I might be offending. It's a completely different medium, but I was not impressed with the prose. Let's put it this way. But it served to tell the story. I mean, my level of confusion was just because everything was so strange. But from a narrative, I guess it's in that aspect, it's perfectly fine, and it's easy to read. I've glimpsed graphic novels that I can't read because, for example, the speech, they are all over the place, and you have to turn them around almost, or they are super small. You see, that doesn't work for me at all. So this one, everything was neat and aligned, and it was fine.
Yeah, I think I have to admit, I think I had to put it down at some point for a couple of days. Like I was reading like a chapter a day or something like that. And I think I had to take a break at some point because trying to follow the story, I mean, the actual story, it happens across multiple planets, multiple cities, multiple universes type thing, all in the space of, I think it's just short of 400 pages. So there's a lot going on, and it's
300
very
odd, yeah.
condensed, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes to the end of the universe and back, I suppose. It's just there is a lot compacted in those in those pages.
And not to put label on things, it's more than sci-fi. It's metaphysical, and
Yeah.
the thing is, I'm not sure, and I'm not intelligent enough. I probably need someone to explain the Incal to me, and then I might choose to believe them or not. I don't know if he's trying to say something in particular, or if he's just simply trying to show you different aspects of the human mind or the human consciousness, and not really say anything specific.
I would agree. There's nothing. If there's a specific message there, I missed it. But it was definitely everything was about the mind. It was about the psyche. It's about identity, perception, the search for enlightenment, the search for something. It was a fool's errand. I guess that's why it's called the fool. The whole thing was a fool's errand. But if he found his answer and then he forgets, it is a metaphor. Yeah. Sorry.
But it was a fool's errand for our main character, for John D. Fool, because I think everyone else gets enlightened. I think everyone else sort of. So for anyone that hasn't read it, obviously spoilers ahead, but eventually we compile this ragtag group of 7 very different characters who, when they join together, they become the key to enlightenment or meeting with the superior being or whatever it is. And it seems that everyone transcends, everyone sort of gains whatever mystical knowledge there is, except for John D. Fool, who goes literally full circle, and the last panel of the book is the first panel, and we go back full circle, doomed to repeat history forever type thing. But it's a full servant, but only for him, not for everyone else.
Yeah, because he doesn't learn. He just goes through the motions. Everything is happening to him, and he just goes along with it. But there's very little introspection. And I'm not sure if the others all reach their potential. We don't know. They overcame their fears, I guess, their nightmares, but were they barren now? I don't know. I guess we need to read the sequels. I don't know. And I know there's more books, but I don't know what are they about.
Yeah. So do you think that he doesn't gain that enlightenment? Because I got more the impression that he rejects it.
He was saying that he must remember, and then I guess he doesn't. Maybe I interpreted wrong. I laughed when I got to the end and then realized, but that is very slipstream, by the way, just going in circles. But I laughed. I just, okay, why is this? And then I had to think about it. I mean,
sorry, go on.
There's a lot. I guess had I read it years ago when it came out, I guess it would be a different experience, because there were a lot of elements there that have been, I wouldn't say copied, because they are so abstract and everything's there. But they've been expanded upon and focused in other narratives are done a lot better. So everything there, as strange as it was also familiar. The journey itself. It felt familiar. You were never lost. So maybe it wasn't as impactful didn't felt so fresh and weird than original. It just felt like oh, I'm just gonna put everything into one story.
Yeah, I think that tends to happen with sort of seminal pieces of work that get overlooked by more complete or better polished subsequent works by other people, that when you go back to that original, like you said, it all seems familiar. Oh, I've seen this done better. And then a certain lack of appreciation for that original work ensues. I think I've had that, had a similar experience when I reviewed the first book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. Someone said, oh, I didn't really connect with this book because I kept seeing all the characters from A Song of Ice and Fire in this novel. And it's like, yeah, but this came like 20 years before A Song of Ice and Fire. And obviously, maybe whatever Tad Williams did, other people have improved on. Whatever Jodorowsky and Moebius did here, other people have done better. And that sort of clouds your judgment a little bit about as to the merits of that original work. Because I think we've got the same edition, that yellow humanoids one, where you got the prologue by Brian Michael Bendis, and he goes on to, I mean, the movie The Fifth Element is heavily influenced by this. I think Blade Runner, like the imagery the scenery in Blade Runner was very influenced as well. Certain parts of the second Star Wars trilogy, when I think it's either Anakin or God, come on, Ewan McGregor's character. Anyway, Obi-Wan Kenobi, when they're falling down that big city through the different, like certain things are very influenced by this. But obviously, if you miss it and go back to it, you go, oh, I've seen it elsewhere, and it loses the impact, like you mentioned.
Yeah, but it's a good thing. It's only I don't see it as copying. It's more as an homage. No, this is something cool. We're just gonna incorporate in this other story. I mean, there is a lot there. I guess there's a reason why it's so popular, even after all these years, and the art is. I've never seen anything like it. I'm not saying that I love it. I don't, but it worked very well to tell that story, and it was quite bizarre at times. But my issue with it was precisely the fact that it was a collection of ideas. It was just jumping from one idea to the other. This thing happened, and this thing happened, and happened. There was no time to think about things for a story that it's so metaphysical and so abstract and so connected with the mind. There was no time for introspection. There was no time for reflection. It was just, I guess it was intentional, but it was just one thing after the other to the other. And like you, I had to stop. There's not a lot to read, but I had to stop chapter by chapter because it tired me to just the amount of information. And everything was so contrived and just bang, bang, bang. I had to stop, and it was only during the breaks while thinking about it. I said, okay, so this is about finding your other half, or this is about the soul, or this is about memory, or this. At least in my head, because I always like to think about stories that way. So I try to look for meaning. So I found some. I don't know if it was the right one. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think you're spot on. The narrative of the story is all over the place. We literally jump from one thing to the next, to the next, to the like. We jump between planets. We jump between universes. And 1 second, like the beginning of the story, you are in this sort of detective noir thing set in some dystopian future. Next thing you know, we are in the sewage system of the city where there's an alien thing handing him some mystical object. Next, we are in some sort of conspiracy thing going on with this. I really like the language, like that, the mixing of the techno priests Like I like that idea, and the homeo horse and all this sort of mixing
The
of all these
psycho
things.
rats, yeah.
Yeah. I like that sort of use of the language there. But we go from thing to thing to thing. We change story, we change setting, like on the turning of a page, and it's really very, very strange.
So, why do you think that character? Why do they focus on that character? Apart from being a fool's journey, but I mean, I'm talking about his personality, because there's many types of fools. And I can't help thinking that it would be maybe a better story with a slightly more likable character, because he was not likable at all. He was not a likable fool.
No, and he gets pushed into things, isn't it? He when oh God, when he has to mate with the queen of the bergs, these alien creatures, where he has to respawn a whole species, like after millennia or whatever. He's forced into it. He's being directed. He's just a useful fool, isn't it? To I don't know to what end.
Yeah, he has no agency apparently. He just no agency. It goes through the motions, and everything just seems to work out. It died like twice, I think, and
yeah. And then we found out later that he's got this son that he didn't know anything about.
Yeah, the sun just appeared.
Yeah.
It's
Again,
like,
what are those things?
Yeah, how did this happen? Oh, I disguised myself as a cyber horror or something. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, continue. Moving on.
Yeah.
No, the time was not a thing, apparently. Even though close to the end, he had specifically, I don't know how many hours, but it was a very specific amount of hours. But even though he was traveling across universes instantly, and the time was just a suggestion. That is very Slipstream as well.
Yeah.
I was laughing. I said, you couldn't even bother. No, there's no point.
No, I just wonder. I mean, like I mentioned on the review last week, both Jodorowsky and Moebius were non-hallucinogenic users. So I think very clearly whatever they saw when they were tripping influenced the story in terms of, like, it's just throw the kitchen sink at it and don't worry about making it all. Don't worry about throwing it together. We'll just make it work.
Don't worry about explaining. But that's not a bad thing. I would love to know what they were on, just for to help my creative process. But they had this weird, story, and somehow they got together. Well, I can't write this. Me imagining the conversation. There's no way I'm going to write this. I can't describe it. Can you draw it? Well, I think I can. Okay, so we'll just work on it, and then here we are. I mean, it worked very well, whatever they did, to create something like this. I think.
I think it'd be difficult to imagine. Say you are US based, and all you know is the late 70s Batman, Superman, Marvel, and if you are based in Europe, and all you know is Asterix, Tintin, and the westerns from the French publishers, this is, I don't know what this is, right?
It's my husband said, because he's reading now, he says that it's very French.
Very French, yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, for people that don't know, this was published originally in Metal Herland, or Heavy Metal magazine, which was it was basically set up in the 60s to 60s, 70s to give people like Jean Giraud like the room to just try new things. Because Giraud came from a very sort of traditional school. He was drawing westerns. He was doing Blueberry, which is a very classic western comic, and even his style changes a little bit from sort of the grittiness and the roughness of Blueberry to a slightly much more sort of clear lines, very sort of Tintin-esque comic in here. So then they were just trying, just try. This is what happens when you give crazy artists a blank canvas to do whatever they want, I suppose.
Yeah, well, art happens. Because creativity, even if it's just like in this case, it is weird, but it has its merit because it's the foundation for so much more. How many other artists has it inspired to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. I don't want to put anyone down, but I think I've seen, because I watched quite a few reviews after I read it. I watched a few videos on how the story came about, the process, and everything. And there's a lot of people that claim to have loved it, to really like it. I'm pretty certain no one out there understands it.
Well, I think everyone takes their meaning. I stayed away from. I started watching a review because I was looking for, because I don't know any graphic novel terms and I didn't want to sound stupid, and I still don't, so I kind of gave up because I didn't want my opinion to be biased or influenced on someone else's. So I forged my own meaning out of it, but I think it's pretty open-ended. I mean, people will enjoy certain bits more than others and will relate with the character on some aspects. Or I mean, there's so much room to expand, to interpret, to just make your own adventure almost, even in between chapters. How would I be doing this situation? How would this happen? Yeah, it's a story that it stimulates your imagination, I think.
And so what about the actual Incal itself? The titular. Is it just a bullshit MacGuffin to get the story going? Basically, it's just this thing that has got unlimited power and can just do whatever the plot needs it to do, whatever the plot may be at that point, to just keep on moving the story forward.
Yeah, pretty much, because when you have such a disjointed collection of ideas, you need something to unify them, and the simplest thing is to have an object, and then that you don't need to explain it. It's better if you don't explain it how it works, and it's just a plot device to get. So it's not so much getting the story across; it's getting the ideas across, getting those specific scenes across, and then it's when they all come together, then you have a story.
Yeah, I mean, and like I mentioned, there's a lot of the esoteric imagery is splattered over every single page, every single chapter, and trying to unpick all of them would take forever.
I wouldn't know where to begin because that's not something I'm into. I noticed a few things.
Yeah,
but
no, exactly like me. So like as I was reading it, there's some sort of obvious ones, and there are some where you go, that must mean something, but I'm not entirely sure what. But was there any particular one that caught your attention, that got you thinking?
Well, several, like his name, of course, the Fool, as in the Fool, the card in tarot. Anima, clearly anima. So breast, soul, life, the personification, all the mirroring and the dichotomies throughout the story. There was a lot of parallels, and I don't know how esoteric that is, but I was always peeking at I felt a lot this thing. Oh, I wish they had expanded this bit, or I wish they had explained this bit. It felt like every time he was going somewhere, it shifted. Start again, new scene.
Yeah. The one that caught my attention is the one about the black egg eating the sun. It's like the egg is this symbol of sort of death in in the book, whereas
Mm-hmm.
in real life, we all come from an egg. It's more like it's this sort of taking this symbol of life and doing exactly the opposite with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of juxtapositions as well, because you mentioned anima, but the sister called Thanata, in Greek, Thanatos is death, isn't it? So you got the
Exactly.
anima, you got the life and the death, and then the sun is called Solun, which in Portuguese, Spanish is the sun and the moon, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of all these sort of dualities throughout the book, which, again, is it trying to tell me something specific, or is it just basically telling me that there is all these dualities across life, across the universe?
Yeah, pretty much. You're talking about the black egg that ate the sun, but then at the end, when you get to the heart of the darkness, there is light. You can't just have one thing, or you can't have light without darkness. You can't have life without death. You have to take the good and the bad of everything in life, and that when he goes to the planet, after impregnating the whatever she was, and then all the millions of one, they were all copies of him. You can't. You need the other half. You can't just have a single. How do I explain? At least that's how I interpret their romance, if it can be called a romance between
not really.
It's not even insta romance. I don't know what to call it, but anyway, there was definitely some connection between the two, and yeah, so we basically went and mated with the wrong entity, and disasters happen. I don't know, but it's all about this dichotomy. No one could just be alone, and you always things needed to match at every story.
So that section where he goes to that planet, when he's trying to convert everyone, he's trying to get the whole universe to believe on some particular thing, to whatever, go to the other dimension.
Yeah, except the whole universe was copies of him.
So in that planet, everyone. Yeah. And what I found funny and extremely cruel is that all his copies hated him. They hated the fact that he was the father, and it's like, is that some sort of Freudian Oedipal thing? Like,
maybe, possibly.
Maybe. Why not?
I didn't thought about it that way at the time. We always tend to kind of rebel or hate what came before, or we have to put the blame on someone. So it's always the
it's part of life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is about human nature. I think that there's a lot of it, more than the origin of the universe or the meaning of life or all those things. It's human nature, and his nature is very, very basic. I think that's why. So it's human nature at its basic. It's just survive, move on, don't think about it, deal with things, whatever happens, just go with emotions.
We got told that at the beginning, isn't it? At the very beginning, all he's interested in is his drugs, his horse, and his cigar. Is it just very, very simple? But is that so? Is that a criticism? Because the whole point is that he's a fool for rejecting or not accepting that higher enlightenment. So what is beyond, or was higher than living a simple life? We've in this day and age, we extol the virtues of living a simple life.
Yeah.
And here he's a man of simple pleasures that is content with having 2-3 things in his life. And yet we send him on this fool's journey where he learns nothing.
Because he is content. Yeah, because he's happy. Maybe that's why you would have to be the witness, always the one that sees life go by and is perfectly fine with it. It's one way to look at it. I didn't thought about it before, but yeah. No,
so then, is he not so much of a fool then?
No, he's still a fool for several other reasons. I mean, his personality, like I said, there are fools and fools. He's a fool, but he's not a really nice guy either. So I don't know. I didn't like it that much. Everything kind of feels wasted on him, actually. Why is he so special? I don't know. I didn't get the answer to that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And this is why I'm glad we have these conversations, because I think everything we mentioned here, I wouldn't have been able to think of by myself. So I'm glad we're talking about it. But yeah, I don't know. That main character, is he a fool because he's a simple man? Is he a fool because he rejects reality or a higher understanding? I don't know. And I think Susana has just choked to death of me, so we may have to give it a minute or so until she gets back. And incidentally, while we wait for Susana, I will leave the links to the videos that I recommended in my review of the book about how the story came about, to a couple of other channels where they give a slightly more in-depth sort of interpretation and analysis of the story, as well as an article on ranker.com where it tries to explain a little bit more the plot of the story. And maybe perhaps we may have to call it a day, because Susana wasn't feeling that well. So we'll have to give it some time. Yeah, sure. We'll wait. We'll have to edit all this out for the podcast version, I suppose. In the meantime, so reminder that next week I'll be interviewing.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Are you still with us? More or less. No worries. So, what did you catch this week? This is the aftermath of what? A cold? Something
Yeah.
else? Oh.
A cold going on, chest infection. Jesus, I nearly coughed along now. It wasn't pretty, that's why.
Yeah, no.
Crying and everything.
No, it's all right. Thank you for sparing us the image. But if you want to call it a day, that's fine, Susana. Don't feel obliged to.
It comes and goes.
All right. So, okay, then some closing thoughts, because I know you got better things to do tonight. I'm assuming that, just like me, you are not interested in any of the prequels or sequels to the story.
No, I think sorry.
No worries.
I can't help it.
Take your time.
Anyway. No, I'm not. Sorry, I can't talk.
It's okay. It's okay. So we've got the prequel, which is before the Incal, and then we've got two sequels, which are after the Incal and the final Incal. And my thoughts are that I'm not entirely sure what they can bring new to this story that is so convoluted and so complicated, that is saying so many things. Because if it's just going to be background story of the many characters that we see here, then I'm not that interested, because the characters aren't that likable, in my opinion.
Let's try this again. No, I have no plans of reading any of the prequels or sequels. I think this was a great experience. Well, it was. I think I will. I'm not saying that I'm ever going to enjoy graphic novels, but if I could, I think I'm learning how to read them. This really helped me.
Okay.
Just getting into the mindset. Because I have this thing. I like to imagine my own stories while I'm reading, and I can't when all the images are there. But sorry, it was fun.
Okay, I'll try to come up with a better recommendation for next time. And whatever is it that you need to take right now for your throat, I think it's time for you to go and glug it down in buckets, because I don't want you killing over the chair on me tonight. So I think we've reached the natural end to the conversation tonight.
I'm so sorry. I was fine. And now, yeah.
And here I am laughing at you. Sorry, that makes me a horrible person by definition. Anyway, Susana, honestly, as always and as usual, thank you ever so much for being here. Sorry to have put you through the Incal, but in my defense, I did not know what it was about. I went in blind as a bat.
No, I thank you for putting me through, because in a way, it did help me with my own stuff, with my own writing. I think I needed this. So thank you so much.
There you go. Fantastic. And if you can string 2 sentences together, where can people find your work and podcasts, etc., etc.?
Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Den of the Weird. It's very neglected, but I'm still there. And on X, Chronodendron. Oh, and of course on Page Chewing forums as well.
Okay. And I think we're going to finally call it a day. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for watching, listening.
Sorry.
Take loads and lots of care, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.